Have you ever felt like God was asking you to do something that just didn't make sense? Maybe you've been called to step out in faith, but the path ahead seems uncertain, and you're feeling alone. You're not the first to feel this way. Imagine being Noah, asked by God to build a massive ark on dry land with no sign of rain in sight. His obedience seemed strange to everyone around him, but Noah chose to trust and obey, even when it defied logic. Today, we're diving into the story of Noah and, more importantly, the powerful lesson it teaches us about obeying God, even when it feels lonely or confusing. If you're struggling to follow God's direction, this message is for you. Obedience to God isn't always easy, and it often doesn't make sense from a human perspective. But God's commands are always purposeful, even if we can't see the bigger picture. Obedience is more than just following rules. It's an act of trust and faith. When we obey, we're saying, God, I trust your plan more than I trust my own understanding. This trust opens doors for God to work in powerful ways, not only in our lives but in the lives of those around us. Like Noah, we're sometimes called to take actions that seem strange, risky, or even isolating. However, our obedience can lead to unexpected blessings and breakthroughs. God doesn't ask for blind faith. He asks us to lean on his wisdom, knowing that he sees what we cannot. The story of Noah is a reminder that our obedience, even when difficult, is never wasted. So how can we live out this kind of obedience in our daily lives? Let's explore a few key lessons from Noah's story that can guide us when following God's direction doesn't make sense. Point 1. God's commands may not always make sense, but they are always for a purpose. Noah's calling to build an ark might have seemed absurd, especially since there was no mention of rain before his story in the Bible. Genesis 2 verses 5 to 6 describes the earth being watered by streams or mists rather than rainfall. So when God warned of a flood, the idea of rain and rising waters may have been completely unfamiliar to Noah and those around him. People likely questioned his sanity as he built a massive ark on dry land, preparing for something beyond his experience. But God had a plan that Noah couldn't see. Just like Noah, we may face moments where God's guidance doesn't align with the logic of the world. These moments are an opportunity to deepen our trust in him. They invite us to lean not on our own understanding but on his. By choosing to follow his voice, we acknowledge that his wisdom surpasses our own limited perspective. Noah's obedience had a purpose much larger than just building an ark. It was part of God's plan to preserve humanity. In the same way, our obedience, even in small matters, has a purpose that often goes beyond what we can see. When we trust and obey, we allow God to work in and through our lives in ways we might not fully understand until much later. When you sense God calling you to something that feels uncertain, remember Noah's faith. Try praying, God, I don't fully understand, but I trust that you have a purpose in this. This helps shift your focus from the confusion of the command to the confidence in God's character. Point 2. Obedience often means standing alone. Noah was alone in his obedience. The people around him laughed, mocked, and doubted his mission. Yet he continued, day after day, building the ark as God instructed. Sometimes, obeying God means we have to stand alone, facing criticism or doubt from others. This isolation can be hard, but it's important to remember that we are never truly alone in our obedience. God was with Noah, giving him the strength and endurance to continue. The ark itself serves as a testament to this. Not only did Noah face ridicule, but he also undertook an immense project with limited help, likely only from his immediate family. The ark was approximately 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high, an unprecedented scale for that time. Building such a massive structure required dedication, labor, and a vision that only Noah could fully understand. His persistence reminds us that obedience sometimes requires resilience beyond human understanding. Deuteronomy 31 verse 6 assures us, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." Just as God was present with Noah, he promises to be with us too. In our own lives, Following God's path might mean stepping away from popular opinions or the expectations of others. We might feel lonely, but we can take comfort in knowing that God stands with those who are faithful to His calling. When we obey, we're drawing closer to God and His purpose, even if others don't understand. When you feel isolated in obedience, remind yourself that God is with you. Just as He stood by Noah's side, He stands with you, supporting you in every step of faith. Point 3. Obeying when it's hard builds resilience and strengthens faith. Obedience isn't always easy, and it often involves persevering through challenges. Noah faced years of hard work, mockery, and uncertainty, but with every nail and board, his faith grew stronger. God uses these moments of obedience to build resilience within us. The challenges that come with obeying God aren't there to break us. They're there to strengthen our trust in Him. Just like Noah, we might find ourselves obeying God's call in the middle of difficult situations. Whether it's staying faithful in a tough marriage, trusting God through financial hardship, or holding on to hope while facing illness or loss. Each of these situations requires the same kind of perseverance that Noah showed. James 1 verses 2-4 reminds us, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Noah's obedience, despite the trials, prepared him for the future ahead. Each struggle we endure can prepare us for the future as well, deepening our character and growing our faith. The symbolism of water in the Bible adds depth to the flood's meaning. Water often represents cleansing and renewal, seen later in baptism and other rituals. The flood can be viewed as a purification, a reset for the earth. Just as the floodwaters cleansed creation, our acts of obedience, especially during trials, refine and renew us. Noah's resilience wasn't just about surviving a storm. It was about trusting God through a transformative journey. In our lives, every challenging step of obedience has the potential to bring about inner renewal and align us more closely with God's purpose. If obedience feels challenging, see it as an opportunity to grow stronger in faith. Each act of obedience, no matter how small, builds a foundation of trust that will carry you through future challenges. Point 4. God's faithfulness is seen through our obedience. Noah's story reminds us that God's faithfulness is revealed when we obey, even when the outcome isn't clear. When the rain finally came, it was a testament to God's faithfulness and to Noah's steadfastness. God never abandoned Noah, and He honored his obedience by fulfilling His promise. This shows us that when we obey, we're positioning ourselves to witness God's faithfulness firsthand. Galatians 6 verse 9 encourages us, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Noah's patience and faith were rewarded in God's perfect timing. After the flood, God established a covenant with Noah and his descendants, symbolized by the first rainbow in Genesis 9 verses 12-16. This covenant was a promise that God would never again destroy the earth by flood. The rainbow wasn't just a sign for Noah. It was a reminder for all humanity that God's faithfulness endures. Each time we see a rainbow, we can remember that God keeps His promises, no matter how long we may wait. Like Noah, when we remain faithful, we open ourselves to experience God's steadfast love and His commitment to walk with us through every season. In our own lives, we might not always see immediate results, but obedience opens the door to God's promises. Maybe you're working hard at a job where you feel unappreciated, giving your best to a family that doesn't always notice, or standing by your faith in a world that challenges it daily. Just as Noah's story continued beyond the flood, our obedience can impact others in ways we may never see, encouraging, blessing, or inspiring those around us. Through each act of obedience, whether big or small, God is shaping us and using our lives to reveal His enduring faithfulness. Your obedience, even in small or unseen acts, is never wasted. Every time you choose faithfulness, you're part of God's purpose, bringing light and hope to the world around you. Take heart and trust that God sees your every step of obedience and that He is at work, using your faithfulness to fulfill His promises. Point 5. Embrace God's timing and patience. Noah didn't just build the ark in a day. According to many theologians, he spent approximately 55 to 75 years building it, patiently working on a massive task while trusting in God's timing. Some interpretations even suggest it could have taken as long as 120 years. Genesis 6 verse 3. This extended process required incredible perseverance and an unwavering commitment to God's timeline. Often, obedience to God involves waiting and trusting in His timing rather than our own. This period of waiting can be challenging, but it's also where God shapes our character and prepares us for what's to come. Psalm 27 verse 14 encourages us, "Wait for the Lord. Be strong, and let your heart take courage." Wait for the Lord. Just as Noah spent decades trusting in God's timing, we might find ourselves waiting for answers to prayers or breakthroughs in situations we've been committed to for years. Maybe it's waiting for healing, longing for a loved one to come to faith, or hoping for the right opportunity to fulfill a calling. These seasons can feel like they're stretching us, but God uses this time to strengthen our faith and prepare us for the fulfillment of His promises. Noah's story reminds us that God's plans often take time, but His timing is always perfect. By the time the floodwaters arrived, Noah's years of obedience and patience had prepared him for the journey. In the same way, our waiting seasons are part of God's purposeful plan. Through every moment of patience, God is teaching us resilience, molding our character, and drawing us into a deeper, more enduring faith that can withstand any storm. Take heart and embrace the waiting season, knowing that your faithfulness in the unseen moments is not overlooked. Your obedience, even as you wait, is part of God's greater plan. Every moment of patience strengthens your faith, aligns you with God's timing, and prepares you to receive His promises at the perfect time. Trust that He is at work, using your patience and perseverance to fulfill His purpose in your life. Obeying God, especially when it doesn't make sense, often feels lonely and uncertain. But remember, just as God was with Noah through every step, He is with you, honoring every unseen act of faith and perseverance. Each moment of obedience, no matter how small or unnoticed, is part of God's greater purpose. Your faithfulness in the quiet, patient moments matters deeply to Him. Isaiah 41 verse 10 reminds us, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you." So here's a step you can take today. Continue pressing forward in your obedience, trusting that God is at work, even when you can't see it. And if you're struggling with feeling distant from God or discouraged in your walk, check out our latest video, The Quiet Threat of Spiritual Apathy. It's designed to help you reignite your connection with God, find renewed purpose, and strengthen your resolve to keep going. Watch it now to take the next step in your journey of faith and perseverance.